Right. I've been in the legislature for 10 years.
Right.
I live in Central Point, which is right next to Medford. Got an apartment in Salem because I'm in the legislature, been working hard there. But the legislature talks about things, but you need an executive who's going to lead to make things happen. And so I'm the Republican candidate for governor. It's not Republican versus Democrat. It's all about what has worked for Oregon in the past, what's not working now, and what leadership is needed to make things work better in the future. We need jobs for our workers. We need more taxpayers, not higher taxes. We need to be able to attract entrepreneurs and inventors, innovators, people that really understand that small businesses that grow hire more people. We need to be exporting products to other states and other countries instead of exporting our kids to other states because they can't get a decent job in Oregon. These are important things for Oregon. People need to be able to get a good job and stay here because this is a place not that they just want to live, but where they can afford to live.
Dennis, tell me, what sort of response are you getting from Oregonians? You're traveling now. In fact, you're here in the Portland metropolitan area. What sort of response are you getting in regards to the platform you just shared with us?
I'm getting an excellent response. People understand that John Kitzhaber's a nice guy. That's not the point. Right. The point is, do we need more management of a bureaucracy, or do we need leadership for our state where we're looking ahead 5, 10, 15, 20 years, where we're looking to try and make sure that we have food growing that can supply the needs of Oregonians, but also be exported to other states and other nations. I mean, that takes water. That takes more land that's currently just parched in eastern Oregon. That needs to have some irrigation. We need to make sure that the urban areas understand that when rural areas are depressed, it takes money away from the schools in Portland. And so when we help provide more success for the entire state, all of the state benefits. So my campaign is about having a tide for our economy that understands the environment, our quality of life, that will lift all the parts of the state and not just a few selected areas.
One of the things that Oregonians have been asked, more specifically here in the Portland metropolitan area, was just recently you guys had a special session, and it was giving different kinds of whatever in regard. People just really didn't understand what that special session was all about. What was that special session all about, and what was the result of it, and was it good for Oregonians?
Okay, yeah, a special session is supposed to be called when there's an emergency. I mean, we have sessions of the legislature every year now, and the reason that you normally pass your bills and legislation during a regular session is it allows the public time to come in and testify. You can look to see not only if something sounds like a good idea, but anticipate the unintended consequences. But when you have the special session like we just had, it's planned behind closed doors, it's deals that are made among leadership, and then you come into a session without the public having adequate time to be involved, and you pass the bills that have been made behind secret doors. I mean, this is not a transparent and open government like Oregon is known for and should have. And so we do not need more secret, closed, special sessions. We need to get more done when we're in our regular session.
Okay. Now, one of the areas, I think there were 3 different areas I think you guys were discussing. I mean, one of the major ones was the PERS situation, and people were really wanting to get some feedback in terms of dealing with this issue of PERS because it's bankrupting our state.
Right. First, let me review what the problem is. PERS is the Public Employee Retirement System. It's got 3 major tiers or plans. The one that that's causing like more than 80% of the problem is called Tier 1. These are employees that were hired before 1996. It's a long time ago, but there are still many of these employees that are in Tier 1 that are still working, and plus tens of thousands that are already retired. The challenge is that the retirement systems are supposed to be fully funded. In other words, if everything's shut down, you're supposed to have enough money to pay the retirement benefits for the life of the people that are vested. We were $14 billion short. Now, after the special session, we're about $13 billion short. And so that $13 billion means that it's like a mortgage. We have to get back up to being fully funded, and we do it over 20 years. If your investments aren't paying that extra money, then it's going to come from employers or employees. Now, most of the employees in PERS in Oregon don't pay anything toward their retirement. It's all paid by the employers. So you got school districts out there, or communities, or the state, that have higher payments because you got to pay off this $13 billion unfunded liability, and those higher payments are like a mortgage on the top of your budget. So that money has to come off the top. So if you've got 20-25% PERS payments and you're in a school district, that means if you need 5 teachers, you can only hire 4, because what you would have paid that 5th teacher, that money is all going to go for the PERS for the other 4. And so when you don't have enough money and you're in a school district, which is mainly wages and personnel costs, you end up cutting teachers, and then when you cut teachers, you still have the same number of kids, so it means more kids in the classrooms, or you cut your school year. And we already have some of the shortest school years in the nation. It's one of the reasons that Oregon's schools are like either 42nd or 46th in America. I mean, in the bottom 10%, or the bottom 10 states of our country. That's not acceptable. We should not tolerate that. Every child that loses a year of good education, that can't be made up. I mean, it's putting them on the wrong track, and we need better. We deserve better, not promises, but action. Every problem that Oregon faces is being successfully solved somewhere, and we can learn from other states and other nations' betas. We don't have to sit here and say, well, this is the way we've always done it. Yes, we're failing, but by golly, we're going to fail with a flair. It's not acceptable. Our youth are at stake. We've got to make changes.
Well, tell me this. We went from one system where we had a state-elected person as superintendent, so to speak, right? The state superintendent.
Yes.
To a situation where now the governor is sort of the superintendent, and he's put his own, basically, his board together. Is that something that's working, you think?
It's absolutely not working. In fact, what did he do? He said, we're going to reform education. And so the Democrats and the Republicans said, all right, Governor, if you're serious about that, we know that the system's not working, and so we'll give you the money, we'll give you the authority to do that. And I voted with that. He's the governor. He's the CEO of the state.
Exactly.
So he makes the promise, says it's going to happen. He hires Rudy Crew, who flies in here. He gets paid $284,000 a year and does nothing that's going to help solve the problems of Oregon's failing education system. What we really need is more authority for our teachers, our parents, and the principals at the local level. North Portland's problems are not the same as Prineville, and those are not the same as Medford's. I mean, we need to make sure that the state is a resource, that the state provides the funding that's necessary, and gives help to the local school districts, and doesn't just burden them down with more regulations, more certifications, more restrictions that cause good teachers to quit teaching and keeps the bad ones. We need to pay for performance. Good teachers need to be encouraged to stay. They need to set the bar, and the bad ones need to be doing something else. But under our current system, all get paid the same. It's almost impossible to get rid of a teacher who's performing badly. There's a term in education called passing the trash, which means that you got a lousy teacher and you can't put up with it anymore. You pass them to some other school district and let them have to deal with it. That's not acceptable.
Another area from our perspective here in the Portland metropolitan area, CRC, the Columbia River crossing aspect of it, boy, that has been a problem. I mean, people here just don't know where we're going. We spent over $180 million, if you will, just on consulting fees and this, that, there. No bridge, no nothing. And now we're hearing the fact that the federal government's maybe sitting on the sidelines, if you will, but the state of Oregon and Washington basically said no to the bridge. Now all of a sudden we hear the fact that the governor is saying yes to the bridge. What's that all about?
Well, understand that the CRC is a project it's a career potential for some people. I mean, we've been working on this since the mid-1990s. Like you say, almost $180 million has been spent, and we have nothing to show for it. And so we finally, as the legislature, said, this can't go on. We're going to draw a line. It's going to be September 30th. It's going to be fish or cut bait. We will approve the project if we have certain safeguards in place. One is that Oregon doesn't go forward unless Washington is going to go forward, and that they pay 50-50 of the costs, except for what comes from the federal government. That it can't go forward unless you have the admiral for the Coast Guard saying that it's going to be acceptable. We don't want to build a bridge that's so low that we cut off any planning for the next 100 years upstream. Well, we don't know what's going to be built upstream. Why would we build a bridge that's so low that you can't even currently get through manufactured equipment and so forth that's manufactured upstream? What was their solution? We want a low bridge because we can put light rail on a low one, and we'll pay $80 to $90 million in payments to existing companies to compensate them for not being able to conduct their business. It is a flawed approach to an important project. Government we build bridges. This part of the bridge is 100 years old. The other's 50 or 60 years old. It's time to build a new bridge, but it shouldn't be driven by philosophical or political ideas. It should be built based on what are we going to have for 100 years that's acceptable both to Oregon and to Washington. And for us to go it alone now, and for the governor to say that he has the authority to do it when the legislature has already spoken, is absolutely an abuse of power. We don't need a king. We don't need a dynasty. What we need is a CEO that understands a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's what we need, and that's going to take leadership and a different viewpoint and a different attitude toward this project and the administration of the entire state government.
Okay. Well, again, at this same point, the frustration comes again. We don't hear this from the legislature, from the standard. The governor is saying he can do anything he wants to do, right?
That's right.
Okay. Understand he's still spending consultant money on this bridge aspect of it, and who's representing us?
Well, that is the challenge. When one party controls everything, then you're going to get over time an attitude that they know what's best for the people, and that it's up to the people just to go along with whatever they say. That's not checks and balances. That's not the way the system was intended to work. It's not serving Oregon's best needs. I mean, do you know that Oregon's got unemployment that's higher than the rest of the state and has been since 1996? When Governor Kitzhaber first took over in his first term, back then, in 1995 or so, we had some of the lowest unemployment in our history. And then a year later, it was higher than the national average, and it has been ever since. And so, what's the solution? Raise taxes on those people that are producing. We don't need higher taxes. We need more taxpayers. We need more jobs. We need to have a bureaucracy that works for the benefit of the people. The whole idea of public servant, instead of come take a number and stand in line for an hour, and we'll get to you when we get around to it. That is not the way it's supposed to function, and it won't function like that if you have leadership instead of just managing the bureaucracy, working within the limits, not rocking the boat. We need a plan for our state for 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead so that we can make sure that we have a partnership with the federal government, that we work with them on the way we use our lands and our resources, and we do it in a way that respects our economy, that respects the environment and our quality of life.
Well, Dennis, this has been great. I really want to thank you for stopping by here in the Portland metropolitan area because, boy, I tell you, we need some answers and we need leadership. And right up front, the way I've seen you up to this particular point, you tend to show that. And so I'd like to say thank you very much for being in the area, and hopefully you will be able to respond once elected governor to the concerns that we have here in the Portland metropolitan area.
Absolutely.
Jobs, education, the like. Okay.
This is a 9.5-year commitment.
Right.
We got another year and actually 13 months before the election, and then 8 years after that. I'm all in. My whole life has been preparing to be able to work with the legislature, work with the leaders, work with our business leaders to help put Oregon back on track. Oregon is worth saving, and together we're stronger.
Well, good. Thank you very much, and thanks for stopping by. And please stop by a little bit more on the trail, will you?
Will do.
Thanks again, Dennis. Okay, this has been Dennis Richardson, Governor for Oregon, and I'm Bruce Broussard, Oregon Voters Digest. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.